I flower farmed in Michigan for 5 years before I built my first high tunnel. Not because I didn't want one and not because I didn't think it would be good for my farm, but for other reasons that I'm going to go into in this video. So in this video, I'm going to share about why I waited that long and how getting a high tunnel changed my northern flower farm. So let's just dive right in. So I'm Ruth Ann from Abundant Blooms Flower Farm. I farm in Door, Michigan, which is just south of Grand Rapids, Michigan, and we're in zone 6A, 5B, depending on who you ask. I started my farm in 2020 and I always dreamed of having a high tunnel. So maybe you're in that dreaming stage right now, because there are certain crops that I can't grow in Michigan without a high tunnel because it's cold. If you can't see, there's literally snow piled all around my high tunnel. It's December. So I kind of always wanted one, but it just felt really far out of reach and other infrastructure needed to come first, like a cooler. I didn't really think too much about it except that's a dream for the future. I didn't end up getting one until 2024, actually in August of 2024. So in the end of my 5th season of flower farming. The reason why I waited is because I simply didn't have cash. I didn't have capital, and I don't go into debt on my flower farm, or at least I haven't to this point. Not to say you never could, but I have chosen not to. So I've built my farm with cash, and so I didn't have cash, so I didn't build a high tunnel. And I wanted a high tunnel that would last. I wanted a really good quality tunnel. I wanted sides that would go up and down automatically. I knew I wanted some things that were expensive and add on. I didn't just want to put up some cheap tunnel. We live in a wind tunnel, essentially. We're surrounded by fields and farmers fields, and the wind just absolutely tears through our farm. In fact, we had a mini tornado come through the farm earlier in June. Actually, the high tunnel stood firm, which was pretty amazing. So I knew I wanted something that was really durable, built for Michigan winters. We get a lot of snow. Fun fact, I lived in Anchorage, Alaska when I was stationed in the military, and we have the same average snowfall in Grand Rapids as Anchorage. I mean, within 4 inches or something crazy, or at least it was when we lived there. So we get a lot of snow. And so I wanted something really, really durable. That was really important to me. So I didn't want to rush into anything and get something that would collapse. I was literally just talking to a flower farmer that lives close to me, and she was saying how they bought these cheap greenhouses from somewhere, I don't remember where actually, and they just collapsed because we have gotten a ton of snow. I didn't want something like that. What I did, because I didn't have capital and because, why not, is I applied for something called an NRCS grant. So those are initials. It's a conservation section of the Farm Bureau Act, or the Farm Bureau Association, and every state has one. And so I went through my state, my county, actually, you go through your county. I applied for a grant. It's a competitive program, so just because you apply doesn't mean that you're going to get it. But I did. I got the grant. So it is a long process. So if you're interested in it, just contact your NRCS agent in your county. There's all different rules in every state, but every state has one. It's also different every single fiscal year, so rules change, but it's out there. It took me about 18 months. I started applying for it in early 2023, and I actually put the tunnel up in August of 2024. I knew I had the grant, prior to that. I think I found out that I was accepted somewhere in spring of that year. I can't remember the timeline exactly, but I couldn't get the funding, couldn't get access to it for a couple months. And it's just a process, right? The grant covered about 75% of this tunnel, and I covered the rest of it. So it wasn't like I completely got a free tunnel, but I got a lot of money toward the process. So it is a competitive process. Again, it's not a guarantee. Contact your NRCS agent. I worked with a NRCS agent. She was really fabulous. I wouldn't say it was super hard. It just is a long process. So paperwork, farm tours, different things. I am a veteran, like I think I mentioned already, and so that did actually help me, at least in my state. That gave me more points in the competitive hierarchy of things. So that was kind of cool. So then once I got the funding, I had to choose the right tunnel, right? Like I said, I was really concerned about it being durable, and I needed something that could handle the Michigan winters. So I ended up choosing a Nifty Hoops tunnel, which is what this tunnel is. And I'm really glad I did. Like I said, there was a tornado that came through here early this spring, and all the trees that are on the road, an eighth of a mile away from us, literally 50% of the trees came down, and the high tunnel stood firm, and it was like a freight train came through. We were in the basement, and I didn't know if the tunnel was going to stand. And actually, my 8-year-old daughter, as we're in the basement, my husband had just run upstairs to get the baby and run down because you don't wake the baby till the last minute. It was like midnight. And she was like, Mom, what about the high tunnel? And I was just like, it doesn't really matter. All that matters is that the 7 of us are safe in the basement. And I really meant that. But I was thankful that it stood firm. I'll tell you that. But it really doesn't matter, because what really matters is your family and your children, and that you're safe, right? High tunnels don't actually matter. But it stood firm, so that was great. So I got a Nifty Hoops tunnel. If you're interested in like the reasons why I chose this specific tunnel, I would be open to doing a video about that. So please, if you're interested, please leave a comment that you're interested in that. Okay, so the tunnel went up in August of 2024. It was such an exciting day. Nifty Hoops came and helped us build the tunnel. And so there were no crops in the 2024 season, but I fall planted, and by spring, the entire tunnel was fully planted for the spring of 2025. So spring of 2025 was my first spring with crops in here. It was just amazing. So I had snapdragons, campanula, anemones, ranunculus, and foxglove. And then my center row had several different direct seeded crops that I kind of was just trialing, because I planted eucalyptus down the middle and I didn't want to have a crop in here till June. I wanted to be able to get the euc in here quickly. So that's what I had planted in here. And I had delphinium planted. That first spring, when I started harvesting the ranunculus, it just was like this place was magical. You just came in here and it was magical. And there's not much going on outside in early May here in West Michigan. The tunnel was just in full bloom of these amazing flowers that everybody wanted. And it just was so magical. And it just was this moment of, wow, this worked. And I'm so thankful that it did. And everybody wants to buy these. And this is why people want another tunnel. It makes you want another tunnel, especially when I found out how profitable and how many sales my ranunculus were able to produce, which I did a video about that, my top 5 flowers that I sold from my flower farm in 2025. So you should check that video out. It's a very popular one. It just makes you feel like, wow, 15% of my farm's sales came from 3 rows in my high tunnel. I mean, that's amazing. That's what makes you really want to lean into these crops and into having tunnels. And there is a lot of management that goes into it. So I don't want to pretend like it's all, rainbows and ranunculus. There is a lot of really challenging things that can happen in a tunnel. First of all, a tunnel is high risk. Like I said, it can get taken down by tornadoes and storms, like the whole tunnel can go, or snow load, or all kinds of different things. There's also other things like disease and pest pressure are difficult in a tunnel, and just a different management. So I've never managed a tunnel before, so that was a learning curve for me, figuring out how to manage these things. I had thrips in my tunnel in early spring, which I then got beneficial insects for. I thankfully was scouting for thrips. Like, I was aware that that's an issue, and I was scouting for them. So I was able to get beneficial insects pretty quickly before it was an infestation. And I pretty much saved my whole ranunculus crop buying nematodes and green lacewings and different other beneficial insects, or at least I think the whole crop wasn't decimated, so I contained or withheld the bug pressure. I also brought in praying mantis sacks. We have praying mantises all over our farm now. I think mostly because of our woodies, and so I found praying mantis sacks in our woodies and brought them into the tunnel. There's a picture of a baby praying mantis coming out of its egg sac in here. So I did things like that and brought in beneficials. Also, I had serious disease problems on my belladonna delphinium, which I don't think I will ever grow in a tunnel again, or I don't think I will. After doing research, asking questions, I'm a member of the AFCFG, the Association of Specialty Cut Flowers, and I asked a question about the belladonnas in the tunnel in the Facebook group, and basically most farmers said we don't grow them in the tunnel anymore because they're so prone to powdery mildew, and then in the tunnel they're really susceptible to it. I don't know that I'll grow it again. I tried. They were like 4.5 feet tall, gorgeous, about to bloom, and then the whole crop got decimated with disease, powdery mildew, and I couldn't sell it. I cut it back. I tried to treat it, and I just could not keep it at bay. In the field, it's a challenge, it's a problem, but it has a better chance. And in the tunnel, it just was really difficult. It's not to say that there are no problems with tunnels. There are definitely challenges with tunnels. Also, in the summer, I was able to get lisianthus in here. I had amaranth that was literally up to these pilings, which are, 10 feet tall or something. Like, the amaranth was to the ceiling. Nobody needs amaranth that big. So it's true. Everything grows bigger and better and really is higher quality in the tunnel, but comes with other management systems as well. I did plant eucalyptus down the center. That's what's kind of in the center row, covered with that row cover, and there's leaves under it. So we are not hardy to eucalyptus here in zone 5B, 6A. I've tried actually to grow them and overwinter them unsuccessfully. I think if I change some strategies, maybe I could, but you have a much better success rate in the tunnel. So, oh, look, it blew off down there. Hopefully I'll be able to grow eucalyptus in here. So it's definitely a learning curve. The first year of the tunnel really was a learning curve, and I had some crops that I planted last or in the fall of 2024 that I planted way too early. They got way too big. I mean, by fall, I mean like I planted them in September, like when I would field plant my snapdragons, and the snapdragons were trying to bloom in November. You know, it just stuff like that didn't work, but it's so I just adjusted my timing, and so hopefully, you know, it'll go better this year. So I am continuing to go forward with planting this tunnel. I have currently planted, I have poppies and pansies and campanula and snapdragons. And I think that's everything I have in here at this instant. I have anemones that I'm probably going to plant tomorrow. We were very, very cold here, like 2 degrees, and now we're getting a little warmer, so like 35. And then I have ranunculus that are getting planted in here this week also, and then I'll have another section of ranunculus going in here as well. Oh, I also have foxglove in here. So that's what I have in here right now. Some of these I've never grown before. I've never grown pansies or poppies before, so I'm pretty excited about that. There's a couple other challenges with a tunnel. One of them is winter management. Even though I do have sides that go up and down automatically, like there's just always something on the tunnel that needs to be assessed, managed, fixed. We had our, oh, my vents are closing. We had our vents break, and my husband fixed that. And right now, literally right now, one of the side flaps, the wiggle wire came off, and on my way inside, I need to fix that. And a bolt came, you know, so it's definitely management. It's not like in the winter, you can just sit back. Like I put these row covers up and down all the time, and I'm constantly monitoring the temperature, and I have temperature sensors in here that are connected to my phone via Wi-Fi. You know, so there's a lot of management. And then snow removal. I don't have to get the snow off the roof because this tunnel sheds snow naturally, which was a big deal for me when I bought it, as far as like what tunnel I bought. But you do have to get the snow off the side of the tunnel. Like you have to either snow blow or shovel around the tunnel so that the snow can shed and not build up on the sides of the tunnel. So there's all kinds of management that goes into it. Winter management, bug, you know, beneficial insects, scouting, pest pressure, disease pressure. So it's definitely a learning curve and a learning process. But all that to say, is a tunnel worth it? I think having a tunnel changed my farm. It set me apart from other flower farmers. Like I said, it's almost impossible to grow ranunculus here in West Michigan without a tunnel. And for my clients selling to florists, that's a big deal. And they have a lot of events. They need these flowers early in the season. And I actually go into that like a lot about how to better serve your customers and pick the right crops in my course, selling flowers to florists. But it just is really good to be able to serve my customer when most farmers can't. I'm not the only one in West Michigan growing ranunculus in a tunnel, but there is not that many compared to like how many farmers are growing zinnias in July. In Michigan, it potentially gives me Mother's Day flowers. It's a little iffy even with that, even with a tunnel. I actually missed Mother's Day. My ranunculus missed Mother's Day this year. Yeah, 2025. I sold 16 stems the week of Mother's Day. But I had them all the week after, and I sold them all even with that. But what would be lovely if I could get an earlier succession and get my ranunculus 2 weeks, you know, before I did, and could have even longer, right? So there's lots of strategy that goes into it. And spring, just like across the board, spring is some of the highest dollar crops and the highest demand for flowers, particularly if you live in a place where there's a long cold winter and people haven't had local flowers in months. It's impossible to grow flowers here in the winter without heat. So all that to say, I'm so glad I dreamed about this tunnel and was able to make that dream become a reality after 5 years of flower farming. So if you're still in that dreaming phase, don't give up and just keep pressing on. Keep your eye on the goal and focusing on your end customer and your end goal and being able to make the dream a reality. That's what happened for me, but it didn't happen overnight. This didn't happen overnight. If you're thinking about a tunnel, I'd love to know where you're at too. So leave a comment below and let me know that. And if you enjoyed this video, I highly recommend that you check out my campanula video. I don't think that campanula gets the spotlight in the spring that most crops do, but it is an amazing, phenomenal, quite easy to grow, crop. It's not easy to start from seed, but it's really not that hard to grow. And I did a whole video all about it. It's a really great video. So I recommend that you check that video out. That's it for this time. I'll see you in the next video.